Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cardiac Wire Show. My name is Jake Fishman. I'm the host of the show and the editor of the Cardiac Wire, and we have a great episode for you all today. We're going to be talking about some of the big changes and challenges that are facing cardiovascular care teams, particularly as it relates to cardiovascular imaging, and how some of these care teams are reacting to these changes and going after the opportunities that are available. And we have the leadership from the Enterprise Imaging Group at Change Healthcare Optum Insights with us today. So we have Tracy Byers, the CEO. We have Omer Schalit Cohen, the Chief Product Officer. And we're going to jump right into it. Tracy and Omer, if you give quick introductions to yourselves, and then we'll have some questions for you.
Thank you, Jake, and I really appreciate being part of this podcast. I'm super excited to talk to all of your listeners. I lead the enterprise imaging business, which was formerly Change Healthcare, now part of Optum. And I've got probably almost 30 years of imaging experience. So super excited to share some insights with the team today.
And hi, Jake, and to all the audience. Also super excited to be part of this discussion. I've been in imaging for, I guess, more than 14 years in various roles in cardiology, also in product, engineering, business, transformation, and most recently leading the whole product management organization for the enterprise imaging business in Optum.
Feels like you are the exact two people I should be talking to about this subject. So that's great. Maybe just to kind of give us a foundation, if you could maybe detail some of the challenges that cardiovascular care teams are facing and the way that their jobs are changing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take a stab at it, and then Omer can chime in with his deep knowledge as well. The way we see what's happening in the cardiovascular market is really looking at cardiovascular disease. With the aging population, we know it's the leading cause of death in the world. I think it's 1 out of every 5 deaths is cardiac disease related. And versus maybe every other disease, once a patient has a heart condition, they really become a chronic patient for the rest of their lives. And that really presents a great deal of challenge for healthcare providers, healthcare systems. And we want to make sure that as a partner in the space, that we're doing everything we can to help alleviate some of the pressure and challenges, that face both patients and caregivers. We think about, probably at a high level, we think about chronic disease tracking and disease progression as being really focused on the importance of data. And so being able to provide longitudinal records of a patient's journey through this chronic disease, making sure that all of the information gets collected over years, that maybe even different care systems have the ability to share that data so that you really get a good holistic picture. Certainly, we know that so often patients are treated pretty late in the disease state, mostly because it can be silent, particularly in women. And, sometimes, patients dismiss the symptoms. And so we just really want to make sure that we're doing everything we can from a data perspective. But maybe, Omer, you could chime in and add some other context from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. A few things, I might want to add, and I think Tracy gave a pretty good high level. But first of all, we're obviously very well connected to our clients, to what's happening in the market, and to kind of in general what's happening in the population. As Tracy said, this is the leading disease. Due to extended lifespan, poor lifestyle, and many of the people, because of continuous introduction, also because of continuous introduction of new technology. So we are seeing increase in procedure volumes and just overload on the system. I think that's something we hear consistently. This is probably one of the biggest asks when we talk to our customers, where they ask us for help. How can we alleviate the burden that they have? Even COVID temporarily created even more burden on the system because people didn't present themselves early enough. And when they did, First of all, there was overload in the system, and second of all, there was just they came in where they were sicker just because of the time that went by. And with all of that, even though there is an increase in the number of patients and procedures that have to be taken care of, I think across healthcare and especially in cardiology, we are seeing a dramatic shortage in staff, clinical staff, and burnout of clinical staff. Again, it's worsened during COVID, as we all know, a lot of staff that left for other jobs. Again, relevant across all of healthcare, but especially in cardiology, which is a specialized field of medicine, it's a big issue. Actually, and another thing, I saw a recent study that about 46% of all US counties have no heart doctors in rural and socioeconomical disadvantaged areas. So again, just think about the health inequity of people not being able to get healthcare. They have to, especially again in emergency medicine, like we're talking in healthcare. So again, just being able to provide the right care to all patient population, that's something which is very dear to our hearts. And this is what a lot of what we're focused on in our day-to-day work. And when we think about our customers and their problems, the things that we are trying to solve. So again, through all these challenges, and I'm soon we're going to be talking about it, it also creates opportunities. Us as technology providers, as innovators, you always want to look for the problems when you want to look for solutions and innovation. So I hope we're going to talk about that.
So a couple of things you said around this huge amount of data, the need for early diagnosis, the need for improving access and improving efficiency really seems to tie into what we're seeing with AI technology and how AI tech is evolving and how regulations around AI are, I guess, maybe catching up. Curious what you're seeing in that space around cardiovascular AI.
So I'll take it, Tracy, and you're welcome to add. First of all, I'm really happy to see AI finally picking up. I think it's kind of been, the market has been trying to figure out how to integrate it into the workflows. And we finally see a pickup. First of all, if you look at FDA approvals, we now are probably across all of healthcare, we're probably close to 1,000 FDA approvals. And if you look at the numbers, like exponential growth of FDA approvals, and we'll just see more and more of these. Out of that, I think about, so the first line of algorithms goes to radiology, but second in line with about 15% goes to cardiology, around 130 FDA approved algorithms, most of them around ECG management and image analysis. But we're seeing more and more for workflow management and other areas. Initially, if you think about these algorithms and AI, it will stand alone. And I think the nice part is how you see it now getting more and more integrated, first of all, into the modalities themselves. So modality companies actually buying technology and integrating it into their modality. So it really becomes part of the workflow. And creating access to this technology as part of the workflow. You don't have to connect to another system. And also, again, hospitals integrating it as they understand the benefits it brings to them. When we talked about staff burnout, how can it take out kind of all the mundane work, taking measurements. If you think about an echo procedure today, what happens without AI? A sonographer would have to go in, they would take the images, they would take measurements along it, and it would probably be a 20 to 30 minute procedure. When we're leveraging AI, the opportunity is to take just the images, a couple of minutes, 5 minutes, and then everything gets done in the background. Just think of the tremendous value it adds to the healthcare system, where now a sonographer, again, we just talked about the shortage, so now they can actually treat more patients. And again, this is really what keeps us going and energized, the ability to treat more patients and provide better care. I even saw recently a company, I thought it's called ASAP. There might be other companies who actually got an FDA approval for a computer-assisted diagnostic. They call it CADX. I think it's the first company to get a clearance for like a diagnostic pathway for structural heart disease. So again, that's amazing. AI is already providing diagnosis, not just measurement, not just suggestions, but diagnosis, this is for POCUS. So again, at bedside with not necessarily trained staff, you're able to get a diagnosis and speed the path to getting care before the patients really deteriorate. One thing to mention is around reimbursement, which is still lagging. Around reimbursement, I think as far as I know, latest I checked, we have only about 11 algorithms which actually have reimbursement out of the 1,000 we talked about. I actually think it's going to pick up, but it is lagging a bit. The good thing is first of all, again, we talked about these acquisitions and it's already being integrated into the modalities and the workflows. And the second thing, hospitals are not waiting. Providers are integrating into their workflows just because of all the benefits we just talked about.
I think the other thing I would add, Omer, is, we see a significant amount of benefit being part of Optum and United Health Group because they have a massive investment in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Because what we mentioned before about staff shortages, the need for workflow and efficiencies, that's true not just for cardiology, radiology, primary care, so many different parts of the healthcare system. And I think, we see a lot of strategic leverage in being a part of Optum because of this focus across the company. I also think that paired with our really strong relationships with the FDA, our regulatory team has stayed really close to the FDA resources just to understand, how do we think about AI in terms of the clearance process? How do we stay close to, helping these algorithms mature in a safe and effective way? And I think all of those things also kind of paint a really positive picture for how we think about AI helping patients and caregivers in the cardiology space for sure.
One of the things that I heard earlier around using AI to diagnose structural heart, and I feel like we're seeing some really major changes in the structural heart arena as well, both with treatments, and then I guess, as more treatments become available, the need for more diagnosis becomes necessary. Maybe you can share a little bit about the technology advances that you're seeing in structural heart and what that might mean for care teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I think structural heart is probably one of the most exciting areas to be in if you want to talk about innovation. As part of my career, I had a chance to work for a venture capital firm, and there's just, again, tremendous amount of innovation going there. If we try to think about kind of the innovation spaces, I think we can split it to medical devices, to imaging, imaging devices, modalities, data management, rehab, and AI is sort of ingrained in all of that. And if we look at sort of, the recent innovations, advancement that we've been monitoring and seeing, first of all, on the device space, recently there's been some huge investment, huge acquisitions. Edwards has been a huge acquisitor in the space. They just bought JenaValve for aortic regurgitation. They bought another for like $1.6 billion with another company, but again, huge acquisition. They also bought InnoValve, that's for mitral valve replacement for about $300 million. And we're also seeing investments in other. So, if you think about like what are companies investing in, they want to improve the devices, right? How they fixate, their lifespan, their efficacy. They want to be able to treat more patients. So kind of, how can we take the same devices but treat more indications, more patients? And lastly, how can we treat more disease? So we're also seeing, for example, now a big investment that was recently made, a company called TRICARES. They got a $50 million investment for tricuspid valve. So again, just expanding for different issues that we have in the heart. And also, if you think about the clinical trials, one of the things that have inhibited some of patient population, let's say specifically women, for structural heart, they have smaller diameter valves, they have smaller diameter arteries. So, there wasn't enough clinical data to make decisions on treating them. And I was really happy to see a recent clinical trial led by Medtronic. I think it's called SMART. 87% of the patient population in that trial were women. So again, just creating access to care for more patients and allowing them to enjoy minimally invasive procedures, which creates, in general, lowers the burden across the healthcare space. So that's on the devices space. If we think about the imaging modalities, first of all, we talked about kind of all of these AI being integrated into the imaging modalities and just speeding up care and enabling not just the measurements, but also the capture. There is a lot of AI that helps the image capture itself, guiding the operator. So now you don't have to be an expert in specifically in ultrasound. You can have less expert people who can actually drive these procedures, and again, in rural areas or in other care settings. And we're also seeing advances in 3D, better resolution. So again, just being able to provide better planning, better diagnosis of disease. We talked about machine learning, obviously. That's a big part, helping measurements. For workflow, one of the areas where we take a very, very big role, and that's where we play, is around workflow and data management. Optum provides a single system dedicated to manage cardiovascular disease. It's part of our enterprise imaging solution, and we have some dedicated solutions for structural heart management. Each disease is a world of its own. You can't try and just have boilerplate solution that will fit every disease. It has its own workflow. It has its own devices. It has its own measurements that you got to take. So we're really investing a lot, making sure that we optimize the workflow, which truly fits the care team's workflow and that flow of the patient throughout their journey. These systems are regulated software medical devices, and they, again, just help to manage, diagnose, and treat the patients. And also, if you think about data management, all of this data and AI is helping us to predict upfront the patient outcomes, tailor personalized treatment plans, and again, just to enhance the overall care for structural heart patients. And then maybe last thing is about rehabilitation. I mean, again, as Tracy said earlier, all these patients, they're chronic patients, right? And we got to think about, first of all, as soon as they're out of the hospital, whether it's minimally invasive procedure or surgery, how do we monitor them, that they're getting better, they're doing what they should. And if there is an issue, we can immediately alert the care team and make sure they come in to get taken care of. And then using telehealth, not having to come into the hospital, being able to, wherever they are, get care, access a physician, access the care team, and again, just provide better care overall. So these are some of the, I think, major innovation areas, but there's much more going on. This is a super exciting domain.
Right. I mean, it's amazing. That was just probably tip of the iceberg, and it seems massive with all the changes and the way care is being delivered and the technology is being used and the way that cardiovascular teams are working. And Tracy, maybe you could help us understand how enterprise imaging might be able to tie all this stuff together.
Yeah, sure. I think, being part of, Optum and the significant market share in the imaging space, where we really can make just a tremendous impact on the cardiovascular space. I would honestly say, we continue to look at market trends. We continue to try to stay up to date with everything that's happening, systems, tools, AI, really to help with those things we talked about, which is improving clinical outcomes and helping reduce that staff burnout. I think the two things that I would mention, one is the importance of cloud adoption. We're seeing more and more criticality in terms of moving our solutions to the cloud, both for radiology and cardiology, because it really allows customers to provide better care, to scale their organizations, and to reduce their overall total cost of ownership. But the other thing, having just been a part of arguably one of the largest ransomware attacks on the healthcare industry, we had an opportunity to really see the power of cloud applications and the security and the protection that provides institutions. And certainly that extends to cardiovascular systems for sure. But ultimately it is to, really help drive efficiencies for the whole organization. So
this is really interesting stuff. I was wondering if you guys could share any advice you might have for cardiovascular teams to as they prepare to handle these challenges and these opportunities that are ahead, what they can do.
We talked a lot about innovation, about AI. The care teams, their day-to-day is treating patients. They're not necessarily able to keep up with everything that's happening. And the other thing is, how do they integrate all of these innovations into their workflows and into their systems and eventually provide better care? So I think they really need good partnership. They need to work with their vendors and understand how do the vendors keep up with the latest technologies, and how they help them and guide them in bringing these technologies in. Like, for example, we're working with very large IDNs. And for them, one of the biggest questions is, how do they rationalize between all the different hospitals they manage? Every single hospital wants a different technology, a different AI. How do they build an AI governance? How are they going to make sure that the algorithms they choose have been tested against the population they are treating? How do they make sure they're ethical? How do they make sure that they kind of provide a good solution for everyone? So again, kind of the governance, making sure you create that and work with a good partner. That's one thing. The other thing is, when you take all of that into account, how will that affect your day-to-day workflow? On many aspects, it's going to make workflow much easier. I mean, a lot of things are going to get done automatically. Information is going to get automatically. With Gen AI, I think the promise is that many data is going to get way more streamlined from a collection and output standpoint, and way less intervention from users. But how does that change the physicians and the clinicians' responsibility for everything that's happening? So we probably need kind of new guidelines coming in from the industry on how to work with AI to make sure we're still keeping the responsibility with the care teams. At the end of the day, everything we're doing is about improving clinical outcomes for our patients. So if we hamper that in any way with new technology, we've missed, right? So how do we make sure we integrate new technology, do it in a safe way, in a controlled way? We have good change control. Yeah, I think these are the main areas that I can think of.
Right. Thank you. I mean, there's a lot to work on, but it's worth it, right? And I guess that's one of the really neat things about cardiology and cardiovascular care is that there's a lot of ways to help patients, and some really cool innovations taking place in this space. And it seems like the things that the enterprise imaging team at Change Healthcare and Optum Insights is doing is keeping pace with that, and really helping physicians and care teams, I guess, evolve along with the technologies around them and the patient needs. So kudos to you and your teams for all that you're doing to drive this forward. And thanks for joining us and sharing these amazing insights with us.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming on.
Great.
For everybody who's watching, I hope you learned a thing or two. Check out what the Optum Enterprise Imaging team is doing. Really neat stuff. And I'll catch you next time.